We all hate Greg, right?
I hate Greg.
Yep.
What if we killed Greg with laxative? What's going on here?
I have tried to create a world that doesn't allow the kind of unhappiness and pain that I actually had to live through.
Their history, their pet names, their favorite sex positions. I audited their breakup.
He's a chicken that teaches children how to count. What would he be doing with a machine gun in his hand?
That's not good enough. You need to tell me the truth.
They made me do it. They made me do...
What does that mean? The app made you sleep with me?
I felt that Gigi had a responsibility to respond.
Even if it goes against the rules.
Even if it goes against the rules.
You think you could stop Peacekeeper with a couple of mean tweaks?
That's totally feeding the trolls. You don't do that.
You never shut up. When you break the role play like that, you ruin everything.
We slept together. Oh, he advertised me while we were in bed.
What? I was joking. We were all joking.
Well, it's not a joke anymore, is it?
We had access to a video conferencing service that could kill.
Do you want to meet up and talk? Without any devices around or something?
That's not a good idea.
Hello and welcome to The Backline with Rob and Adam. My name is Adam Colley, alumnus of the Second City Main Stage.
And my name is Rob Norman, author of the cool improv book, Improvising Now, a Practical Guide to Modern Improv.
Rob, how are you?
I'm waiting for that window. You know that special haircut window?
You and I rarely talk about haircuts, so I don't know this window, but tell me.
Le cheveux fenêtre. You know that part where you get a haircut, and then there's this... Haircuts never look good when you first get them, and then there's this window where it looks great, and then it starts to look shaggy and really bad, and you're trying to figure out that perfect time of the window. So that's what the window used to be. Now the window for me is, when is COVID the worst? When can I find that week where the numbers are down and I can go get a haircut? So I think I'm close. I think I'm ready for it.
Yeah, I have stages of hair as well, and when my hair gets too big, I have to part it because there's nothing I can do. Every haircut I get, there's comments from the hairdresser about whoa, it's a lot of hair. And I'm like, yeah, this is my hair. I've lived with it for quite a while.
I remember, maybe this is 6 or 7 years ago, where you tried to make the part a thing for you. You tried to do it for real. And it was such an interesting time to see you explore the boundaries of your own hair. I think all of us were
just not...
if it makes you happy, Adam, go for the part. Try it out, I guess.
Well, I've abandoned it, but it's nice to know that I can pull it out whenever I need.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, that's what's up. That's the major thing going on in your life.
Yeah, that's the haircut.
This haircut window.
Haircut window. But I saw on Instagram that you were traveling or something this weekend.
My wife and I went to.
Oh
so
yeah, she's your wife now. Whoa, cool.
If you've ever been a long listener of this podcast, you know my irrational love of cobblestone and all things Old Town. And so a few hours out of LA is this place called Calico Ghost Town. And it's from the 1880s, and it's this old mining town. And you can go. And we went, and it brought me a lot of joy. Just seeing the thoroughfare and the kind of... did you ever watch Deadwood?
No.
Just the on top of the saloon, there's kind of a balcony that you can look onto the thoroughfare, and you think of right, there's no way to you're not texting anyone, you're not connecting with anyone, so you just kind of look, and you're well, what's happening? I just look out the window, and I just look at people. And we got to go into the old saloon, and they had the swinging doors, and there's a woman there, and we had a drink. But it was so high in the mountains that we left LA in the sun, having a great time. Then we started to go up, and oh, a little rain. Oh, a little hail. Oh my God, a huge snowstorm.
Whoa, that's cool.
I had to drive, and like they say in LA, like, oh, if it drizzles, like watch out because it never rains. All of the oil and gas and crud on the streets kind of liquefies and gets this like sludge. So they're like, just be careful because LA drivers aren't used to it. So going into a huge snowstorm scared the hell out of me. But the ghost town was totally worth it. It's going to be a thing. They have a whole bunch of California ghost towns, and so I'm going to make a little mission to make it all the visits.
I can imagine like it's like a disaster movie where it snows in LA, and then you for some reason are the main hero. Be like, snow, guys, I'm Canadian. I know how to deal with this, and you get to like navigate.
The idea of like walking in snow, like it's a skill that you just learn, right? As a kid, if you grew up in Canada, you're like, oh, this is very difficult. So what are the things my body needs to know how to do? And there's just certain things that I think we don't think about, but then if someone else had to deal with, it would be like sand walking. If you like lived in a desert area, it's like, well, how do you go up in sand? What do you mean?
In Dune, they have a special walk. So
in Dune.
Yeah. I mean, I went skating at Arrowhead Provincial Park at night. So there's all these like torches, and you kind of go around this. I don't know. It's like maybe like a kilometer of track. And there was 100 people all skating. And I'm not a great skater, but I'm fine. I can skate. And there's so many people who are better than me. And it blew my mind. I was like, that's crazy that everyone in this country just knows how to skate.
Well, it's like, it's the winter where you're not going outside. You got to go inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, see, I think what's so good about the back line is the start of our podcasts are kind of the best content for the whole episode.
Yeah.
And Rob, you brought a haircut story. Mm-hmm. So in my mind, you're a master of content creation, and that's what this episode is all about.
Wow. Thank you.
Content creation. Now, have you seen Murderville?
I have not seen it.
I saw it. I saw one episode, so I shouldn't say I saw it. I saw one episode. And you're like, oh, there's very heavy elements of improv. I know Curb Your Enthusiasm, heavy improv. There's a new show in Canada called Canada's LOL, which is like, oh, it's just celebrities improvising each other to try and make each other laugh, and whoever laughs leaves. But it seems like improv is coming back in more ways than one. And content creation through improv is something you and I are familiar with. And it's how Second City works. It's how a lot of theaters work. And you just released a podcast called Limited Capacity on CBC. And you yourself used a shit ton of improv. So I want to talk today about how does that work? How did Limited Capacity and the idea of using improv come to be?
So Limited Capacity, yeah. So first, maybe I'll just give some background. So Limited Capacity is a anthology horror series. There's 6 episodes about the way our relationships are changed by technology. It was made during the pandemic, so CBC was looking for projects that could be made over Zoom or, in our own homes. So all of it was recorded during the toughest times of the Canadian lockdown. This show was not supposed to be an improv show at all. There was supposed to be 0 improv in it.
Really?
Yeah. So the whole thing was scripted. I scripted everything. I wrote all but 1 episode. But there was this challenge in radio. And the challenge in radio is you can't fake a surprise. That's the phrase I'm using. Because we're all so used to hearing nonfiction podcasts, like, for example, This American Life, which I think is an incredible show. It raises the bar about all the audio medium. You have these incredible salacious stories where you hear people's real reactions. So how are you, Adam Cawley, showing up for a 2-hour recording session, getting the script the day of, going to compete with that kind of the visceral real life reaction of someone telling their actual story. And so that was the big concern. So while making the pilot of the show, one of the things that I just wanted to try out was to try and get some of these reactions. So to get people legitimately surprised, legitimately scared, legitimately confused, which happens a lot in the show because there's a lot of twists and turns. And all of that tape ended up being the stuff that we used. So you did episode 6 of the series, the last of the series. And by then, it had pretty much become an improv show. I was so interested in the scripts I had written, and I had it as a like a fallback, but the improv was the part that I was the most excited about.
Well, it's so funny because so many things you brought up, it's like, well, those feel like universal issues when using improv to create content. And by that, I mean, when you said it's so hard to fake a surprise, so much of Second City, when you're creating a sketch review, you are improvising based off of a premise in front of a live audience with a director watching. After the show, they'll give you notes, and then you do it again. And there's a famous Second City phrase, I'm sure it's elsewhere as well, just called the second show blues. And this is that idea of we created magic last night out of nothing, right? We've all experienced that moment on stage where you're improvising and this magic happens. The audience lose their mind. You can't believe this thing connected. And then it's like, great, do it again tomorrow. And it's like, well, I don't even remember how I was standing. I don't remember what my face was doing. How do I manufacture not knowing what's coming? Huge challenge. The other thing you brought up is you wrote a script and then you're like, I get less and less interested in this script every day. And I always talk about, like, I'm a writer, but I don't like writing. Because writing, you sit there and it's very difficult to separate creation and editing. People want to do it at the same time. So you look at a blank page and you're like, well, I could write this, but no, that's no good. So you're trying to create and then you immediately edit yourself. You try to create and you immediately edit yourself. But with improv, it's like, there's no time to edit. It's pure creation. And so that idea of getting less and less interested in the script is because you keep creating new and new ideas and wanting to follow those. It's such a beneficial thing to have in your back pocket when, if you need to create anything, we talked about this with the Beatles documentary, right? You see them just being like noodling around and being like, is this something? Is this something? I wrote this song. They come in, then they all start improvising around it, and the song becomes something completely different. So what do you think? What are your major benefits when you're using improv, and what are the problems?
You just said a lot there.
Thanks.
I think when you're talking about like the editing and the writing process, that piqued my interest just because I think you're completely right. The idea that you would create a story in your home and you would write it into your word processing machine, print it out, and then give it to a bunch of people. And in the script, it says it's a sunny day and everyone's happy. And you show up to record and it's raining. And you go, what? No, it needs to be a sunny day because the script says so. Well, it's like, well, but it's not, man. So do you want us to pretend? Do you want us to pretend that it's sunny out? Well, if you're working in TV and film, what you do is you shoot on a different day and you spend thousands and thousands of dollars to do that. But I also think, when it comes to casting, this is also a problem where you end up hoping for a sunny day and all of a sudden it rains. And what I mean by that is maybe you go to cast someone, you write a part for someone, and they end up not being able to do it, which happened a bunch in the show. People had very challenging schedules. And so you end up writing a part for someone and then you have to recast it. And you can find someone similar, but you're not going to find the person who you were thinking of. And the whole project changes. Because they're a different person. They've had different lived experiences. And that's not a fault in the process. That's actually one of your best the best benefits of improv, because it is bespoke to every person who's going through the lived experience of your show. And so there were people who maybe I ended up being like, well, I actually wrote it for someone else, but you're going to do the part. and they ended up surprising me and offering me things and offering me layers that I couldn't see coming. And so there's a huge value in leaving space for the actual people who are going through the experience, as opposed to you, the person who's trying to create the experience. And that was something that was very important to me during this process. As you did episode 6, so you could probably talk about this better than I could. But making it feel like no one is doing work and that everyone is showing up to have something done to them. So what I mean by that is like, Adam, you showed up to a show where you kind of knew the premise of what you were about to do. You knew who your character was. You got a sheet with your tactics and objectives of what you wanted out of each and every scene. So there's actor league work for you to do. But hopefully during that process, there was a couple times where you're going, wait, sorry, what's happening to me? What happened in the story? And so it doesn't feel like you're in control. It feels like maybe you're even sweating a little bit for real while you're on the mic trying to figure out who am I, what do I do, and how do I navigate this narrative, just like in real life.
Yeah, I don't want to obviously spoil the episode at all, so I won't go into detail, but I did get a package from you, but there was things like there was very vague details on things, and then there was parts where it would say do not read ahead. And so I was in my basement in my parents' house, and I had you had a rig delivered to me. I've got my laptop up, and I've got this sheet where it's like I kind of know what's up, but I don't even know I know the premise of the show, but this episode I don't know what I'm doing, and knowing that was scary, but also very freeing, right? And I'm sure for a non-improviser, terrifying. But there were moments where I was so confused, or there was moments where I was like, is this the show? Are we doing the show right now? Because I just said a bunch of shit because I didn't know what to do, or I was presented with a challenge. There was one point where on another day of recording, someone showed up and just started yelling at me. And I was like, I don't know the proper way to do things, so I just had to go instinctually. And I think that's when you get those moments when you talk about you can't fake surprise. I don't even remember what I said, but I remember being in that fight or flight mode, and I knew I couldn't run away. So I just had to deal and be like, content will be created here. Whether it's good or bad is not my job. Mm-hmm. I've been hired as a beat-prov actor, so I'm just going to go with it. But if you had given me a full script and it's like, hit all of these beats, I could have done it. But I'm sure it would have been a little more rigid, a little less magical and whimsical. And it feels like when you allow for improv or you encourage improv, you're going to get things you didn't expect. And if you don't like them, you don't have to use them. But that little magic that you can capture when someone does something without being able to edit it ahead of time, I think is so interesting.
So you and I have had, we've been friends for 15, 20 years or something, and you and I have had conflict, but not real conflict. And so I would say that I know how you fight very well. I know how you resolve conflict. And there were times when I was watching you fight where I was taken aback, where I'm like, that's a normal way of fighting, but I've never seen Adam do anything like that before. I think you blamed someone for something, and I was like, I have never seen Adam blame anyone ever, and I was shocked and appalled. I think one thing that's interesting is, seeing you attack a problem with your full brain. To know, I should also take a step back. So for each actor, the improv scenes, there was things that you wanted. You had an objective in that scene, something you're trying to do to the other person. So there was almost this element of short form where you weren't worried about telling the story. What you were worried about is, I'm going to make Adam laugh in this scene, or whatever it is. I'm going to make Adam say, you're a good co-host. And so you get to watch the actor kind of cycle through all the different ways to try and get what they want, to manipulate the person into doing it. Also, sometimes you're supplied with a series of tactics where it's like, try this, say this, do this thing. But for the most part, the actor is free within this box to explore as much as they can. And it is amazing unleashing two very talented people on each other who are trying to manipulate each other to the full extent. And how much of a richer scene that is when two people are going 100 at each other. I'll just give you a quick example. In another episode 5, I think it is, the Fitter, Better, Roger, there's two improvisers who are well known in the Toronto scene named Ashley Botting and Alistair Forbes, and they're very, very good friends. And they were improvising with each other, and they were trying to each achieve an objective. And the scene was going well, and it was great. But I was like, something's off. And I was like, you guys are like best friends. You guys like know each other. Can you use what you know about the other person to get what you want in real life? Can you make them do what you want, knowing exactly how they work? They were playing girlfriend and boyfriend. So that intimacy totally paid off, and it totally sold the scene because they were able to pull things what they knew from the actual person about how the actual person actually worked, as opposed to doing a kind of half measure of who they thought their character was or what they were supposed to be doing. So the mix of what's actually happening between two people versus what was written 3 months ago by myself in a dark room is a massive difference.
Well, you talk about these tactics and objectives, and like in my, I'm using air quotes here, script, no, in the way of like, there's beats, but I don't have specific lines I have to say, and I'm not waiting for a cue. But some of the tactics that you would give me are things like, if the other person in the scene finds out about X, this whole episode is ruined. And for me, I don't know how sincere you're being. I just see that live because I haven't read ahead, because I've been told, do not read ahead. And then I'm just sitting there improvising. And I know this is going to be a podcast. It's going to be our national broadcaster is putting this out there into the world. And it says, if this happens, this whole thing collapses. So that's a lot of pressure, but a very clear direction. And again, I think so much of improv is that fight or flight. And so much of improv training is learning to manage those feelings. Because I've been on stage and been bombing and the audience hates it. And I can feel the adrenaline start pumping through my veins. And it feels like, someone get me out of here now. No one's getting me out of here now? Well, then I have to push through. And knowing that you can always push through. There's never going to be a time, unless you're in physical danger or something, where you can't push through in an improv show. And I think this was such a heightened version of that, because it wasn't just an improv show. We're taking the skills from an improv show and putting it on something that is being recorded and going to be edited and played. And it was such a dramatic shift in the way I perform, because I know that this is part of a larger picture, rather than being in an improv show and thinking, well, this goes out into the ether afterwards. No one cares. If it's great, cool. If it's bad, cool. Neither one matter, but this one did. And those tactics and objectives that you gave people were very interesting and very helpful.
Yeah. I mean, the idea that, in that particular scene, that there was stakes for your character, that like you have this secret that you definitely don't want out. It was a very powerful scene. It was really, really fun to watch you play. And I think like, a lot of this way of working came from an earlier podcast I did for CBC called Personal Best. And I made it with this guy, Andrew Norton, who is not a comedian, not an improviser. He's a documentarian. He was at transom.org, and he learned how to do like radio journalism. And when we were making Personal Best, we would help people overcome small little problems. And we had pitched to CBC saying, listen, we're going to have these big set pieces. There's no big set pieces in radio. So we're going to have these massive set pieces. And the great thing about radio is we don't have to pay for it. So we can say we took them to the prom blow up a couple balloons, have it in my garage, and we can make it sound like we're at the Met Gala or whatever. We'll use Foley, I don't know. And when we started working on the show, Andrew was like, no, we gotta rent the real hall. We gotta blow up all the balloons. We gotta get the buffet of food. And I was like, what? That's so expensive. It's radio. Why are we doing this? And his argument was, because you can hear the difference. You can hear the difference when you do it for real versus when you're pretending. And I think within improv, I think that's also true. Like, you know, one of the things that I've been thinking about for the last 3 or 4 years is like, how do I make the experience for myself on stage as an actor as real for me and as real for you as possible? Because if we can make it as real as possible, then neither of us have to act. And that's less work.
And that's something this is where I started to see like, oh, is Rob actually crying? Oh, Rob's actually upset.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like those moments to be a partner in are very exciting too, because it's like, Rob's not faking it. Rob's going for it.
Well, and what's interesting about that moment is probably, if I can give you a real tear, there's probably a moment where you go on autopilot and you go, and maybe you take a step towards me because you've forgotten that you're in an improv scene for a moment. This blast of this visceral emotion. And so you're already in the process of responding before you even have a minute to think about what the right move is. And it's interesting at higher levels when we're able to create these kind of real life experiences, the rules in every single way are going to get in the way because you would have to check in your brain first what you're supposed to do before you would react to my tears. And that we don't want that.
So part of the goal with the backline is to kind of give people insights, give them free advice, give them something that they can use themselves. So you've created a few of these kinds of projects. What is your approach? How can you help someone? Talk us through how you create something that is a script, a story, but also leaves room for massive amounts of improv.
So I would think that if you're the director or the lead creator on a project like this, if you're in charge of the ultimate narrative, then you should have an idea of where it could go. Like I think it's incredibly helpful. Let's say, tying this back to radio, let's say I had a big interview with you. You were an expert. You were some kind of scientist.
Oh.
I would think about the story that I have, and I might go so far as to write out the kind of tape I want you to say, or the tape that I need for my episode for it to work. Then I would reverse engineer that and ask questions that maybe might get me to the place where I need to go. I will tell you that process is ultimately a waste of time because nobody will ever answer the questions that you want, and probably they're not going to say the things that you want them to say. But that preparation allows you to know. It allows you to be more present and to have more control over what's happening, and allows you to go, oh, the thing I wanted was this, but what I got was much more interesting, much more valuable to me. I got to make some changes to my script or to my original idea of where this episode is going, but now I have a new direction. And I feel like that's what you kind of want to be doing in this process. You want to have a kind of clear, some clear boxes that you want to check off in the process and know them before going into that process. And then afterwards, you can allow it to be changed. Writing the script, the full script of what you were supposed to say, then going and then creating a improv beat sheet where that's each individual scene and here's your tactics and objectives for each scene is a lot of unnecessary work. And so many things changed from the original script, but at least I knew what the baseline was supposed to be.
Yeah, and I think with as an actor in that position, just like at Second City, having a director that makes you feel safe and confident in terms of, I'm not worried if you go off the tracks. I got this from above. That is something that I think you did a very good job of, making me feel like I don't actually have to worry about this. Because whatever I say, I know Rob can pull me back or push me forward. but it was never like, Adam, what was that? What the fuck are you doing? It was very much like, cool, okay, great. I know how to take that now and include it into what I brought, right? It's that classic, you bring a brick, I bring a brick thing. But even just speaking to people out there who might want to create their own content, whoever is that kind of person in charge or a group of people in charge, the ability to allow your improvisers, if you want them to improvise, to actually allow them the freedom and giving them the confidence of, hey man, whatever you do, I got you. That is a very freeing experience for the performers.
And I feel like, this is a challenge if you're directing, because more often than not, you're more experienced than the people that you're directing. Like, they're probably younger than you and they're newer to this.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be challenging when you're directing straight up improv or improv to sketch, because you go, well, the move is so easy. Like, just go from this move to this move. This is the sketch. Don't you guys see that? Like, just say this, just do this. But that creates a show full of premises and sketches that people don't have an attachment to. And so part of that process of being a director is patience. And the people who I see continuously getting the best work over and over and over again are people who are so patient. And I've worked with people who I'm like, you're like a 5-star director. Like, you are an all-star. And we would improvise a scene and they would be amazed. And I'd be like, what? I was in that scene. You shouldn't be amazed, man. We can do better.
Yeah.
What the fuck's wrong with you? But that's what their superpower is. They're patient. They're happy to be there. They actually care about what you're doing. And I don't think they're faking it either. I don't think that's performance. I think they really just love improv and they love watching improv. So maybe even being a strong performer might be a hindrance in this process sometimes.
Well, not being a strong performer yourself, I think it really proved beneficial for your directing.
Yeah.
But the idea, like, I don't think especially with a project with a big budget, it's like, I can totally see people losing their patience of things not going the way they want. And I think there's a big disconnect often. I had 4 main stage directors, and some were very patient, and those were the shows that I flourished because I felt the trust. And there was some shows where it was just a struggle because the director had a goal and was like, yeah, improvise. That's not improvising towards my goal. And you're like, well, I don't know how to improvise like you and give you what you want. If you wanted something that specific, write it. Don't ask people to improvise because maybe you were lazy and you didn't want to actually write it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like this process of improvising is easier and cheaper, but I found it to be more expensive, more time consuming, more effort. Because also, like, in this process of making limited capacity, we did record the scripted parts because I needed them. Like you might have been improvising, and to get to another section of a scene, I need you to say this specific thing. Well, I got to get that before we leave. So we would improvise the scene first without seeing the script. Then we would do a take of it, which is the script verbatim. And then I would ask you, now knowing the script, to go re-improvise and say whatever you want. You can hit the beats of the script or not. And I would say almost 0 times when I was editing this did I take the second take. It was either the first take or the third take. I wanted to hear you thinking. I wanted to hear you stumbling. I didn't want it to be crisp and clean. And I'm actually, one of my things I'm most proud of, if you look at Limited Capacity, the podcast, the #1 Google result is Limited Capacity real?
Ooh, that's like the improv, like, did you write that show?
Yes.
Like, was that improv show? When did you guys write that? Like, that's the compliment.
And it's like a crazy thing to search because there's like demons and shit in it. Like it's an insane thing to to Google. Are these demons I'm listening to this podcast real? Well, there you go.
Well, speaking of costs and all that stuff, for people listening who might think, oh, I want to pitch this. I want to get someone to give me money for my improv project? Did you get resistance from CBC when you mentioned improv? Because it feels like, my God, since Whose Line was kind of number one for all of us coming up, it was like, I think we all want to do an improv show, right? Curb Your Enthusiasm is allowed because it's Larry David, it's HBO, right? But for people who don't have massive celebrity amounts of money and recognition, how did you get CBC to be okay with it?
I'm not sure they were necessarily excited about an improv project. Like, I think that they were more interested in, well, audio fiction is something that CBC has never done before. They've done like recorded theater plays as radio shows or podcasts, but they had never done audio fiction. It was during the pandemic, so this was something that could be done over Zoom. And I had a pretty good track record from my last podcast, so I had a little bit of leeway there. I think there was a lot of trust, which I think you would need to do a project like this, to say like, hey, we're going to use improv to create it. And also it was piloted, right? So they heard the finished product. But I definitely don't think that you could roll up to CBC or NBC or wherever and say, improv, $100 million, please. I think you would need to have a solid premise and really lead with the story first. And improv is maybe something that's like in your pitch document, it's like page 3 and there's like one small line about it.
And this is something that, you can do as a proof of concept. You've got phones, you got ring lights, you can improvise a bunch, edit it and say, yeah, we improvised this. Here's how long it took. Here's like, make it difficult for people to say no, right? You think ahead of their questions, their concerns, and have those answers ready. Because we all want to do improv-based projects, at least I do, but we know it's so difficult to sell. So what are the ways that we can protect it? So you kind of talked us through how you work this as a creator, as a director, even pitching it. Like, how do you work this? If you now are giving advice on the other side, right? All these actors, you've worked with a bunch through limited capacity, personal best, and at Second City as a director. What really excites you as a director, and what are maybe some things you could give advice to watch out for if you are an actor who wants to be involved in these kind of projects?
Yeah, I mean, I think just like in an actual improv scene, you want freedom and then you want to mix that with structure. And if you can do that effectively, you're going to have a good rehearsal process. So, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of organizational work to be the director. Because basically what you're doing is you're hustling to create an experience before the people walk through the door, and then you're taking them somewhere. Before I got into improv, like professionally, I was a summer camp counselor. And you remember the early days of me directing you as all summer camp games. And I think that gave a really good foundation of like what it feels like to be taken through an experience, whether that's like an initiative task that's going to teach you a lesson, or a nature hike. Someone's guiding you on this experience. I think that's ultimately what a director is supposed to do. Now, here's the question. When you're walking through the forest and a kid stops to look at a tree, do you go, no, keep going, I want to get you to the special tree? Or as you as the guide, do you stop and go, someone likes this tree, should we talk about it? What type is it? What do you think? What could we do with the tree? Like, that's kind of your job as the director. I would think about, I think if you're dealing with sketch, I think one of the great things you have is the premise mixed with the play, like improvising the premise. With this, it was the script, and then trying to avoid doing the script was the structure play part of it. If you're just even writing, how can you find ways to play within your own writing? I'm coaching a guy who's doing solo one-person improv right now, and we talk about this all the time, where it's like, all the answers in your head, both characters on stage are like helping each other to tell the story that your writer brain wants to tell. So you should have one character try to tell that story, and then have another character that messes up your story on purpose.
It's so funny that solo stuff. Like I remember one of the advice pieces in Mick's book was those data monologues. If you need to warm up by yourself, right? And it is kind of that starting something and then interrupting yourself, not allowing yourself to get comfortable, which is so interesting. And so being a director and dealing with the actors were the things that came up where you're like, oh, I really enjoy what you're doing there, or that really helps me, or actually what you did there, that kind of is not very helpful. Like if you were to coach a few actors right now, what would be the things that you would give them to help them succeed and give a director what they want?
I think for me, it's never about performance notes. It's never like louder, faster, say it like this. I don't care about that. And in fact, too, like, you know, part of this process that I thought was so exciting for me was like seeing how people's brain works. So if I say to you, you know, impress Adam somehow in this scene. It's your only job. And you're playing the scene. Well, I'm really excited to see how you're going to try and impress him. Do you talk about your wealth? Do you talk about how cool you are? Do you talk about how smart you are? Like, it's very revealing to try and attempt that. But while I'm watching this, the main thing I'm looking for is, are you effective against Adam? Like, I love the idea of someone coming at you 100%. And sometimes all the note that you need is, you're losing. He's not impressed.
Yeah.
Whatever you got to do, you got to double down. Look at him. He's not impressed with you at all. Go get it. And that encouragement is basically just permission to go harder, to do it for real. Because especially in Canada, I would say like our interactions are defined by etiquette and being polite. And so we don't want to do something that's too much. Even like, especially in TV and film acting, if you've done any TV and film acting, there's so much shame about you doing too much. It has to be authentic and true and perfect, but it can never be too much. It can never be pushed. And the best actors are the people who are able to be authentic, but still push harder than a normal person would push.
My personality is very much, I want to do this right. And that idea of you're losing, putting someone in that position again, because like it all is, it's like, holy shit, I need to do something now, right? And like, you know, when you've got something that you have to take care of, like a meeting or a phone call, it's like you can postpone, you can prep, you can talk it through with someone, but in that moment, there's nothing you can do other than fight or flight. And again, the flight in this situation would probably be like, can we cut? I don't know what to do. In an improv show, it'd be like, I just run backstage. But that idea of you're losing, and just like that tear you talked about earlier, it's like, it gives you this instinctual, like, well, then I need to ramp it up, but I don't even know how to, I know the motive I have, but I don't know how it's going to express itself. And so that is surprising yourself from within so that there is no right or wrong. You're just like, you told me I'm losing? Well, this is how I try and win.
Yeah.
Terrifying, but effective.
I think if the goal post is your partner's face, then I think you are doing the actorly work. If I know if I'm winning or losing by seeing what's happening in your body for real, then we actually have a scene. If I'm focused on, am I getting laughs or does the director like it, then I'm not acting anymore. I'm doing a kind of pantomime. And so I love the idea of being like, oh, you're losing. Can't you see that he's not impressed? Well, I'm going to be looking at you very carefully to see what works with you. And then that also gives me hints too, right? I have a yacht. Uh-oh, Adam didn't do anything. In fact, he kind of winced a little bit. Oh, I guess he's like anti-capitalist. But actually, I donate a lot to charity. I'm trying to take down the government, whatever it is. Like now I have a new way to get to you because I actually know who you are. And that's the piece that I think in improv we don't talk about a lot, that you and I talk a lot about in workshops and shows, which is all of this improv is relational. So much is talking about like, what are the correct moves for me to make? What are the correct moves for you to make? But that doesn't make sense to me because everything we do is relational. It's all dynamic based. And so we should be talking about what we're doing to each other more so than what individual party is doing to another individual party.
Yeah. Yep. And, you know, that idea of worrying about what the director or the audience thinks, it's as one of the actors in it, it's like, well, the audience in this situation is the director. And the director has kind of given me a path to go down. So it's not up to me. I'm just going to do my thing and trust that this person is in charge. They'll guide me. And so it's that symbiotic relationship of like, I have patience for this. Oh, you have patience for this? Well, then watch me go off on rails because I know that you are you're the bumpers on the bowling alley, right? I go too far and you're like, no, you don't. No, you don't. But I'm free to go as fucking wild as I want. And I think having the knowledge that that's what they want, trying to give the casting director what they want, trying to give the director what they don't want that. They want you. So if you can bring what you do to a project like this, the director will help guide it. But and you tell me, Rob, but what it sounds like is they really want you to just do your thing. As you said, like, how do you think? How do you attack this? That's why we brought you into the project, not so you can do how I do it. I would have done it on my own.
But even more so than that, I mean, you know, coming from Personal Best, which was a show that was real people helping them overcome things, we would drop them into these like surreal scenarios. So like one of the girls we set up, it's a very complicated episode, but we set up a teen Olympics for her where she had to compete in a responsibility Olympics with other teens because she felt like she wasn't responsible enough. Anyways, I don't care the way she reacts. I'm not like, oh, she didn't yelp when she should have went, ooh. I don't care. All I care is that you react. All I care is that I'm excited to see what it does to you. That's exciting for me. We had some very good actors in the show. We had people like Eric Peterson, who was on the show called Corner Gas. He was on like American Gods. He's on a bunch of shows. He's an incredible actor. And you could hear that, right? We also had people who weren't really actors, who were just people who were doing their jobs. So it's like, you know, we needed someone to play a concierge at a hotel. So what do? Do you find an actor? Do I go, Adam, can you play a concierge? Why? Just find a concierge to do the job. They can write the script better than I can. Great. Yeah. So if we're just capturing someone walking through a haunted house, then whatever happens is exciting and fun and correct versus I, the director, have a movie in my head, or I, the director, have a sketch in my head. Now you have to live up to the thing that's in my head. It doesn't exist. Yeah. You have no right to this. And, you know, there are many, many times when I've had a scene or a sketch in my head and I was like, that's awesome. We got to get that. And I've got it. I got it exactly the way I wanted it. And I put it out into the world and the world went, fuck this. I hate this. It's like, well then, why am I even bothering trying to think of something ahead of time? The things I'm thinking about aren't even good to begin with.
The Rob Norman story. Rob, anything else that you want to add about improv and creating content?
No, I mean, Limit Capacity was such a cool experience, and I was so grateful I got to make it. And if people want to check it out, you could find it wherever there's an RRS feed. So how you listen to this podcast, on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, whatever.
Nice. Now, Rob, we've talked a lot about on-stage stuff, off-stage. What is exciting you in your life?
I want to get this name right. Yeah, we're talking a lot about writing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one movie that I think is such an interesting. It's so interesting the way that this movie is written.
Okay.
And I don't think it's a particularly great movie either. Have you ever seen The Nice Guys with Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe?
No, I've seen the trailers, but I haven't seen the movie.
So this is like a movie where it's like set in LA. It's like, oh, we're a cop or something. It just seems like the film noir kind of cliche story. And so it's not super interesting to me. It's not the kind of genre that I get excited about. There's no wizards. But the way this script is written is really interesting. Basically, the conceit of it is anything that could go wrong will go wrong. And I think that is incredible. So there's a scene where there's this shootout where a bunch of guns are being shot at them, and they're like being action heroes. And Ryan Gosling says to Russell Crowe, like, throw me the gun, so he can shoot back at them. And this is like an action sequence where it's like you take the gun, and then he shoots him and he kills him. So he takes the gun and he throws it to him, but he misjudges the throw and he just throws the gun out the window. And he's like, what? And within this movie, this is constantly happening. I love the idea of writing the sincere movie and being like, this is what's supposed to happen in my detective movie. Now I'm going to go back, and every chance that something bad could happen to a character or something could go wrong, it's going to go wrong instead. What is that story instead? That's interesting to me.
Yeah, I've heard many writers, I don't think I would ever want to do it, but that they do a normal pass of a script and then they go back and do a comedy pass. Right? Like, let's just get, like, what's the story beats that have to happen? I'm not so concerned about jokes. We'll find jokes, but as long as the story makes sense, then we can go back and fuck with it. And I think that sounds like a very fun approach, but very time consuming. I thought you were talking about the movie Free Guy, because I have seen The Nice Guys. I saw it with you like 5 years ago or whatever.
That's so funny.
It's so funny. I was going to talk about something else, but actually a movie I saw this week, because when people do, like, they get a genre and they do film noir, right? You brought that up. Have you ever seen Sunset Boulevard?
I don't know if I have.
I hadn't, and I just watched it for the first time this week. It's from 1950. It's almost 75 years old.
Whoa.
And it was like, oh, this is the most classic film noir I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was like a musical or something, but it's like a dark kind of thriller.
Oh.
And I was like, this is from 1950. And if you're a person who does film noir genre improv, check out Sunset Boulevard. It's full with the monologues and the cigarettes and murder mystery. And man, you want to see a character. Norma Desmond, I think is her name. And she plays a former silent film actress, like the biggest star in the world of silent film. And then as it transitioned into speaking, into talkies, she fell out of favor, but is like desperate to get back. Oof.
Sad.
It's a pretty good one.
Yeah, and if you're watching that for a film noir, you know what I always say to students? Don't look for the things that you already recognize, like the cigarette and like her legs would go on forever or whatever it is. Look for the things that no one else has seen. Like, what are the parts of film noir that people aren't paying attention to? And that's the part that's always going to be the most exciting for me. It's not the stuff that everyone knows. It's the stuff that people have looked at and not seen.
The other thing too with it is like, I love when you watch something and you're like, oh, now I get jokes in current pop culture. Where you're like, oh, now I get that Simpsons joke. Now I get that Seinfeld joke. Anyway, very cool things. 2 movies to check out. So if you are someone who wants to create content through improv, or someone who has created content through improv, reach out to us at The Backline Pod on Facebook and Twitter, and at The Backline Podcast on Instagram. Let us know. How did it go for you? Any tips from your end? Anything that you realized really helps, or does not help at all. This podcast is brought to you by the Sonar Network. If you like this podcast, subscribe and hit that bell. You can rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Doing so helps other improvisers find this podcast. Oh, Robbie Norman, you love when I read copy. And coming up next on the back line. Robbie, thank you so much. Check out Limited Capacity. Check out episode 6 specifically and see how that came together, because I didn't know how it was going to until I actually heard it. Mm-hmm. Robbie, great to see you again, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, AC.
Now it's clear as it's promised that we're making 2 reflections into 1. 'Cause it's like you're my mirror staring back at me, staring back at me.